Good morning, everyone. My name is Heidi Illingworth. I use the pronouns she, her, and elle. As the MC of the conference, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the CMNCP21, the annual conference and AGM of the Canadian Municipal Network on Crime Prevention. Bonjour, je m'appelle Heidi Illingworth. En tant que maître de cérémonie, j'ai le plaisir de vous souhaiter la bienvenue à la CMNCP21, la conférence et l'Assemblée générale annuelle du réseau municipal canadien en prévention de la criminalité. I am joining you from my home south of Ottawa on the unceded traditional Algonquin territory of the Anishinaabe people. I also acknowledge that we share the land of the Mohawk territory of the Haudenosaunee and Haudenosaunee people. I respect both the land and the people of this land, including all Indigenous peoples who have walked in this place. I would now like to take the opportunity to introduce myself briefly. Again, my name is Heidi. I'm the former federal ombudsperson for victims of crime, and currently I'm the executive director of Ottawa Victim Services. And I agreed to MC this event because while my role is advocating for and serving victims of crime, I truly wish that I didn't have this job and that we didn't need victim services in communities across Canada. So it's really my hope that governments will start to recognize that we can stop violence before it happens. We know which programs are effective, and this is what survivors actually want. I've worked now more than 23 years with people impacted by violence, and I can tell you that almost every victim that I talk to tells me that they want to prevent what happened to them from happening to anyone else or to their loved ones. And this is why I so fully support efforts to prevent victimization. I believe that we really have to start treating violence as a serious public health concern in Canada and recognizing the long-term harm that arises from it and the billions of dollars that we spend every year that violence costs us in terms of our health and social and criminal justice systems. And if you've walked along survivors who are struggling to recover, you know that it just makes sense to invest upstream and prevent this harm in the first place. The pandemic has really brought private violence that so many people are experiencing in their homes into the light. And importantly, I think it provides us with an opportunity to reflect on the ways that we are responding to crime and violence and trauma in our society. So this is why the CMNCP conference is so important over the next 3 days. You're going to be discussing what safety means and how we can make communities safer in light of the ongoing pandemic. You'll be looking at how to advance equity and diversity in communities, how to address systemic racism and oppression, and curbing social polarization, hate, and violent extremism, all as a means to make our communities safer. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce Jan Fox, who is the current co-chair of the Board of Directors of the Canadian Municipal Network on Crime Prevention. And she will now officially welcome you on behalf of the CMNCP.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so very much for those really inspiring words and for your ongoing support. We really consider ourselves very lucky to count on the former federal ombudsman for victims of crime to support our work and to be such a strong ally. So again, very much appreciated. So welcome, everyone. This is not the format that we had hoped for. Again, we had hoped we could be in person, so fingers crossed for next year. But nonetheless, we're grateful that we can be together, at least in this format. So on behalf of Dave Dixon and myself, my co-chair, we're just absolutely thrilled to welcome you today. I'm joining you today from Treaty 6 territory, which is the traditional meeting grounds of the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, and Nakota Sioux, and is also home of Métis Region number 4. And I think it's just important to take a second to think about why we do land acknowledgements. And we do that to honor those who have come before us, those who have safeguarded the land, and those who have safeguarded the land we all now call home. I think that doing land acknowledgements is a small act of reconciliation, but it's also an act of intentional relationshiping. And I think that's very much, to me, it calls to mind the collective work we do here at the Canadian Municipal Network on Crime Prevention. We're building relationships and learning from one another. And there's a Cree word called Wahotowin, which denotes the interconnected nature of relationships, communities, and natural systems. So thank you for allowing me to acknowledge the land I'm in, and I'm hoping others will join on the chat to tell us where they're joining from. So today, we're happy to tell you that we have over 180 people signed up for the conference, and we have participants joining us from coast to coast in Canada and elsewhere. We welcome, for example, of course, our valued CMNCP members and practitioners from across Canada, but also we have representatives from urban and rural municipalities, Indigenous communities, many agencies that we work with, students, and many other groups. We also welcome very close partners, such as the members of the Alberta Community Crime Prevention Association, people that are joining us in our rural crime prevention pilot sites. We have representatives from local police forces and from academic institutions. Also, there are people joining us from different orders of government, including the federal government, governments of Alberta and Manitoba. And we also thank and welcome our current and former funders, such as Public Safety and the Government of Alberta. I might have forgotten some, I hope not, but please jump into the chat line and also remember to participate in the networking events. So, as said, over 180 people. That's way more than we expected when we started planning the conference. But I guess in hindsight, we're not surprised, given the growing interest in crime prevention, and as Heidi mentioned, has really accentuated the need to end violence we see through the pandemic. It's our hope that this conference will contribute towards comprehensive and multi-sectoral approaches to increase safety and decrease violence everywhere. So as Heidi mentioned, this year's conference examines several topical and leading edge questions designed to inspire and provoke conversation in creating communities, safe communities across Canada. So we're going to look at things like, what does safety mean? What were the effects of COVID-19 on community safety? What is the role of community safety practitioners in advancing equity and diversity? This is a huge question for us at the network. We're looking internally to say, how can we do better? How can we increase our diversity on our own board among our memberships? So our hope is that this conference will expand and deepen your knowledge and skills through the keynote addresses, sessions, and networking. I'm really excited about today's keynote when we have Senator Labakane Benson. She's also going to speak about her experience dealing with victims of crime, in this case, many of victims who have been incarcerated that she's worked with over the years. So please make sure to join in on those networking events. That's really the most important part of a conference, and so we've tried to build that in as best we can. We're hoping that you will do that. So also just want to do a quick shameless marketing for those of you who are not members of the Canadian Municipal Network on Crime Prevention. If you want to learn more about us, please visit our website. Okay, so this year we are particularly excited and thrilled to have a gold sponsor. This year our sponsor is Motorola Solutions. And we are so pleased to have a representative from Motorola Solutions join us, Matthew Swarney, who is the Director of Government Affairs at Motorola Solutions Canada. Matthew has been a friend of this network for many, many years. We are so grateful to have him in our world. He is just such an amazing friend and sponsor. So thank you very much. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Matthew.
Thank you very much, Jan. It is both a great pleasure and a great privilege to be able to sponsor the CMNCP annual conference and I am especially grateful to Jan and to Felix for their friendship and guidance since we first met a number of years ago. Je suis très reconnaissant de l'amitié de Jan et Felix depuis ces dernières années. It has also become very clear to us at Motorola Solutions that the vision, mission, and actions of the organization, CMNCP, and its members are vital to the future of the prosperity of all Canadians. What do I mean by that? Well, rather than trying to explain it with my own words, which will not be particularly insightful or eloquent, I will borrow and use the words of the editors of the World Happiness Report in the introduction to their 2020 report. It reads as follows. Marie, who is in good health, employed, married, with average income, sees herself as free from discrimination and feels safe in the streets at night, is estimated to have life satisfaction 3.5 points higher on the 0 to 10 scale than Helmut, who is in fair or worse health, unemployed, in the bottom fifth of the income distribution, divorced, and afraid in the streets at night. This is the difference if they both live in a relatively low trust environment. But if they both lived where trust in other people, government, and the police were relatively high, the well-being gap between them would shrink by 1/3. The well-being costs of hardship are thus significantly less where there is a positive social environment within which one is more likely to find a helping hand and a friendly face. Since hardships are more prevalent among those at the bottom of the well-being ladder, a trusting social environment does most to raise the happiness of those in distress and hence delivers greater equality of well-being. So the way that I read it, the editors were focusing on the value to all of us of a positive social environment. So I guess the next question is, what is the key to creating a positive social environment? Well, in an age of a deadly viral contagion that has led to a global pandemic that has in turn both exposed and exacerbated negative social contagions and pandemic, I wonder whether at least part of the answer lies in our ability both to create and sustain positive social contagions by listening to the most harmed, marginalized, and victimized among us, and working together to build a better experience of life by everyone and for everyone. Through reducing harm, marginalization, and victimization, and at the same time building positive experiences that create those shared positive social norms that are so vital to our collective holistic prosperity. When I look at the theme of the conference, together with the speakers and topics they will be addressing, I see both a willingness and ability for the CMNCP and its members in the position that you find yourselves at the front lines of community mobilization to be key sources of those positive social contagions to create holistic, lasting, and sustainable prosperity by everyone and for everyone. I want to close by thanking the CMNCP for the privilege to speak with you, and I wish everyone a wonderful conference, and I look forward to meeting all of you in person when the conditions allow. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matthew. We really appreciate you being here and sponsoring the conference. Thank you so much. I am now very pleased to introduce Randy Boissonneau, elected for Edmonton Centre and longtime supporter of the Canadian Municipal Network on Crime Prevention. As he's traveling to Ottawa today, he decided to provide a recorded welcome. Randy is beginning his second term. He was defeated and re-elected this election. He's a huge supporter of our network and a champion for diversity as well.
Good morning, everyone. It's my great privilege to welcome you all to the Canadian Municipal Network on Crime Prevention's 2021 annual conference. and annual general meeting. My name is Randy Bossino, and I would love to be there with you in person on Zoom right now, virtually, yet I'm on my way to Ottawa for orientation, as I have been recently re-elected as the Member of Parliament for Edmonton Centre, a role that I held from 2015 to 2019, and it's the great honour of my life to be representing the citizens of Edmonton Centre once again in what will be the 44th Parliament. And when I am in Edmonton Centre, I bring greetings on behalf of Treaty 6, the home of the Cree, the Dene, the Saulteaux, the Blackfoot, and the Nakota Sioux people, as well as the home of Métis people for time immemorial. I have also served as the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage and Special Advisor to Prime Minister Trudeau on LGBTQ2 issues. And as a community builder and somebody deeply committed to making sure that all of our citizens are and feel safe, I respect and recognize the work of Reach Edmonton. And the reason I'm here with you today is because Jan Fox asked, and any of you who know Jan, when she asks you to do something, you just say yes. I was also asked to provide a few thoughts on the theme, which is community safety amid a global pandemic and who's being left behind. And I think it's a very important conversation for you to have. And I acknowledge the fact that there's over 200 people attending this conference and a full range of participants, community practitioners, academics, people from the field, people who are experts in the field, and I know that you're going to have rigorous conversations of how to keep us all safe. And I think what I've seen and in talking with colleagues across the country, we saw how underrepresented people were in real danger of being left behind during the global pandemic. And I mean women, I mean children, racialized Canadians, Indigenous people, and also members of the LGBTQ2 community. And so those fault lines that were, that were laid bare during the global pandemic, we did see that emergency services were able to respond, but it's a reminder and a call for us to make sure that those systems are more resilient and more robust to withstand future shocks and to make sure that nobody's left behind. It's our collective responsibility to amplify those voices and to make sure that people are safe and that the systems that we put in place are able to withstand these kind of stresses. Last week, I had the opportunity to attend a community gathering just off of an alleyway in an area in Edmonton, not far away from my own riding. And the conversation was a hard one. It was people who don't feel safe. We had members of the police service there, and we talked about derelict homes. We talked about drug houses, and we talked about what some of the limits of policing are, what some of the limits of the municipal governments are. And one of the things I learned as a member of Parliament from 2015 to 2019 is that citizens don't really care what jurisdiction something's in. They just want the work done, and they want the systems and the governments that they elect to work together. And so it's incumbent upon those of us that are heading to the 44th Parliament to work in concert with you, with provincial and municipal counterparts, to get the work done. And so the call to action that I want to raise very clearly is let's work together to end the scourge of derelict buildings in our communities, to tackle head-on the issue of the opioid crisis, and in many of our cities, the methamphetamine crisis, to redouble our efforts to end homelessness and to make sure that everyone has a place that they can call home. I also want to make sure that we find funding for community revitalization coordinators and make sure that when we're doing social and affordable housing that we have good neighbor agreements in place. There's a lot of work to do. I look forward to doing that work with you. I wish you very good conversations, and I can't wait to hear about the wisdom, the reflections, and the recommendations that come out of this conference and annual meeting. All my best. Merci beaucoup. Très bon congrès. À la prochaine. Have a great meeting.